Hello, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 4 o'clock for January 5th. Council, any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Seeing none. Administration?
None from administration.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor mcgoon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda for Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, as presented.
Thank you, Councillor mcgoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Councillor Nelson.
Just had a question. Administration had emailed yesterday wanting to add a grant discussion or a request for a decision. I'm just curious if there's an update on that.
C. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I had sent out an additional email this afternoon. It wasn't very long ago, though, so it might not have been received by all of council. I will be bringing a report to council on that item for February 2nd. The grant deadlines are such that a full report can be provided to council with additional information.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. C. Olson. Council, any debates? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? And the agenda is adopted. That'll bring us to council minutes for adoption. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we accept regular meeting council minutes December 1st, 2020, the Standing Committee of Council minutes December 8th, 2020, and the special meeting council December 15th, 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our citizens minute with council. Ms. Anderson, are there any today?
There are none.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. And that'll bring us to our public hearing for today. And I will hand it off to our Deputy Mayor, Mr. mcgoon.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The following public hearing is held pursuant to Section 692 of the Municipal Government Act, being Chapter M26 RSA 2000 and amendments hereto. The following rules of conduct will be followed during this public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point. The order of presentation shall be entry of written submissions, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, and any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating the bylaw. However, questions to the councillors or other parties will be accepted through the chair. I hereby declare the public hearing relating to the bylaw open. The purpose of the proposed that's over to our secretary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of the proposed bylaw number 1088-16 is to amend the land use bylaw as follows. Number 1, edits overview that summarizes the proposed amendments. 2, red lines versions of the proposed land use bylaw incorporating the edits overview. And 3, land use district map redesignations. And the link is provided in the agenda package, as shown on Schedule A with attachments 1, 2, and 3. First reading was given to bylaw 1088-16 on November 1st, 2020. December 1st, 2020. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Hinton Voice newspaper on December 10th and December 17th, 2020, and advertised on the Town of Hinton website.
Are there any late written submissions relating to bylaw number 1088-16?
No.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of bylaw number 1088-16?
No.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to bylaw number 1088-16?
No.
Is there anyone present who is deemed to be affected by bylaw number 1088-16 and wishes to speak?
No.
Councillors, any further questions? Seeing none, Do the councillors require any further information? If not, I hereby declare that public hearing relating to bylaw number 1088-16 is closed and will accept a motion to adjourn. Councillor Nelson,
I move that we adjourn the public hearing.
thank you very much. Council, any discussion on that? Seeing none, I will call that to question. All those in favor, please indicate. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And I will turn things back over to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McGoon. That'll bring us to our first action item for this evening, temporary mandatory mask and face covering bylaw review, and I'll hand it over to CAO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. At this time, I don't have any updates to number of complaints or any issues relating to the mask bylaw. With the provincial restrictions in place as well, compliance is generally very good. Over the holidays, we didn't see an increase in complaints or any additional calls coming through to bylaw. So at this time, there really isn't anything to update for council. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Olson. Council, anything regarding this action item? And seeing none, we will move on to our second action item for this evening, which is our land use bylaw amendment 1088-16. And back to you, CAO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. So this item was before council a few moments ago as the subject of a public hearing after receiving first reading in December. The changes through this amendment include typographical errors, omissions, language updates, and land use district map changes with the intention to provide clarity in its application in our community. The recommended action for this item is to proceed with second and third reading. Please note that unanimous consent is not required to move to third reading as indicated in the report. That was an error. Administration is happy to receive any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Council, any questions? And if not, I will entertain a motion. Councillor McGoon.
I'd like to move that council give second reading of land use bylaw number 1088-16.
Thank you, Councillor McGoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? And seeing none, I will call to question that council gives second reading to land use bylaw 1088-16. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, I would entertain another motion if that's the will of council. Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to move that council give third reading of land use bylaw number 1088-16, third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council gives second or third reading to the land use bylaw 1088-16. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item this evening? And seeing none, that'll bring us to our third item, sewer rate bylaw 858-18, and back over to CAO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. The sewer rate bylaw received first and second reading at the December 15th special meeting and is brought to council tonight for third reading. During the special meeting, council approved 2021 budget that included a 4% increase to this rate to support a town contribution to West Fraser's annual lagoon maintenance. I just want to point out that there is a typo on page 133 in the bylaw itself. The line above the signature should read a third time this 5th day of January, not second time. At this point, administration is happy to receive any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Council, any questions, discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor McGoon.
I'd like to move the council give sewer rate bylaw number 858-18, third reading.
Thank you, Councillor McGoon. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? And seeing none, I'll call to question that council give a sewer rate of bylaw 858-18 third reading. Council, all those in favor? That also is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this action item this evening? And seeing none, that'll move us to our fourth item, water rate bylaw 859-24, and back to CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. As with the previous bylaw, the water rate bylaw received first and second reading at the December 15th, 2020 special meeting. Tonight's recommended action is to proceed with third reading of the bylaw. The rates for 2021 through changes in the water rate bylaw include a 4% increase to offset necessary contributions to West Fraser with respect to water treatment plant power costs and the rent of water treatment plant space occupied by the town to provide potable water to Hinton. Administration is happy to receive any questions that council may have on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Olson. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council give water rate bylaw number 859-24 third reading, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. We have a motion on the floor. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council give water rate bylaw 859-24 third reading. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item? Seeing on, we will move on to number 5, a waste rate bylaw 933-5. CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. As with the previous two, this bylaw also saw first and second reading at the December 15th, 2020 special meeting of council and is before council tonight for third reading. Waste rates see an increase of 4% for residential and 5% for non-residential customers. Administration is happy to receive any questions from council on this item as well.
Thank you, CEO Olson. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Waugh.
Hi, I did have one question that I received from a resident, and they just wanted clarification as to why residential was going up by a smaller percentage than non-residential.
CEO Olson.
I will look to Mr. Voloshin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The understanding is we need to raise 4% to match the increase at the landfill for the $5 increase. And that's the 4% would match the contribution required from residential, where 5% was a council direction from the previous year to go for 3 consecutive years of 5% in the commercial.
Councillor Waugh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Voloshin. Thank you, Councillor Waugh. Council, any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Waugh.
Yes, I'd like to move the council give waste rate bylaw number 933-5 third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council give waste rate bylaw 933-5 third reading. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Again, any further questions for this action item? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our land use bylaw amendment 1088-15. CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. The amendments included in LUB 1088-15 are to redistrict the town-owned lands at Bhutan Avenue to direct control. The purpose of the change is to provide the intent and regulations necessary to achieve the outcomes from the design charrette final report. Council provided first reading at the November 1st, 2020 regular council meeting, and a public hearing was held on December 1st, 2020. At the same meeting, the bylaw received second reading. Ms. Walker is present tonight as well to assist in answering any of council's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion if that's the will of council. Councillor McGoon.
I'd like to move the council give third reading of land use bylaw number 1088-15.
Thank you, Councillor McGoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council give third reading to land use bylaw 1088-15. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. And council, anything further for this item? And seeing none, that'll bring us to our seventh item for this evening, debenture borrowing bylaw 1150, purchase of new fire engine. CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Council provided first reading to the debenture borrowing bylaw on December 1st, 2020. The process for the bylaw includes a 2-week advertising period followed by a 15-day petition period before the bylaw can be received by council for second and third reading. These requirements have been completed and no petitions submitted during the 15-day period. Recommended action tonight for this item is for bylaw 1150 to receive second and third reading. Ms. Fox is on the line by telephone, and Todd Martins is here as well to assist in answering any council's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Olson. Council, any questions? Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming that this fire truck, the one that we're buying or purchasing, should last us about 20 years. What are we doing so in 20 years from now, we don't have to come up with another, 1.3, $1.5 million? What are we doing in preparation of 20 years from now?
CEO Olson.
Thank you. Ms. Fox, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what we have been doing over the last 2.5 years is working with Dale and Todd to ensure that the fire services department is contributing to the capital replacement plan as necessary. So that is something that we've done, and the increased contribution amount there does cover the amount of anticipated capital for the fire truck. The one thing I would caution though is that each year, as we're challenged to meet the reserve contribution amount required for capital replacement, there's always risk that the amount that's sitting in the common equipment reserve is being utilized for other pieces of equipment as well. So in the situation this year, even though that some capital contributions are being made to the common equipment reserve in general, there's lots of different pieces of equipment that are relying on that reserve to fund it. And overall, common equipment is probably the most well planned out for future replacement. However, because there's no reserve restrictions and no reserve strategy to support that, there is decisions that get made in regards to capital replacement by different directors and leadership that sometimes draws down the required amount for future capital in other areas.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what can we do to prevent that from happening? This reminds me of our the money that we're setting aside for the rec center. We're the only council in the last, how many years, 20 years, that has even thought to set money aside and, specific. So what can we do to ensure that this money stays where it's allotted to go?
Mayor Michaels.
I'll defer to Ms. Fox.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Without video, it's hard for me to respond appropriately. So thank you. the thing that we're looking at doing, and what was brought up through the budget process, was creating a tax strategy and a reserve strategy and a reserve policy that supports regular increases to the reserve contribution to ensure that the actual contribution for replacement is occurring in the amounts that it should. What has tended to happen, and that tends to happen not only here, but in many municipalities, is we're always challenged with having enough money to deliver the services that we provide, also do the capital replacement reserve contributions while keeping the tax rate at a reasonable level for our residents. The challenge there is, and something that we've addressed through this budget process, is to ensure that we're putting forward a tax rate strategy that not only addresses the future needs for reserve contributions, but COLA increases, inflationary increases. And in order to do that, we are looking at reducing programs or services. So the overall operating budget is reduced so that we can manage the amount required for capital at the same time. It'll never be what the ideal amount is, because obviously we have a deficit that's occurred for year over year, not being able to contribute the right amount to capital replacement. However, the ability for a municipality to meet all the demands on capital replacement with the resources needed isn't there either. So we have to find a happy medium between the resources that we have to do the work and ensuring that the right contribution is there. So I know it's a long answer, but it's through the tax strategy and the reserve policy that I think will start to ensure that it aligns with the long-term asset management strategy.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Councillor Race?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. It's good to know that we are, looking forward, and in 20 years, it'll be a good conversation that we're having, not one where our citizens are wondering, why are we doing this? So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Nelson?
I just had a question in case there is public listening. I believe the director stated that we run a deficit year over year. I'd just like some clarification around that, because from what I understand, we're not able to run deficits as a municipality.
CEO Olson?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I believe Ms. Fox has dropped off in order to provide clarification to her comment. I'm unable to provide that clarification to you. Yeah, I'm not sure if the service, but that is correct. We're unable. Oh, Ms. Fox.
Yes, sorry, I dropped out.
Okay, clarification was requested on the comment that was made that the municipality runs a deficit each year.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the long-term asset management strategy that we're looking at, as part of that process, it looks at calculating the amount of capital replacement or deferment of investment into new, it's not to do with new capital, it's to do with the replacement costs of our current assets. So it's not a deficit like we run a deficit as far as how much we've planned to expend. It means that every year, if we don't replace a certain amount of capital, that adds to what we call a capital deficit.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Thank you, Ms. Fox, for that. Council, any other questions? Councillor McGoon?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I wanted to dovetail off of Councillor Race's comment. Just to confirm, Councillor Race, this is actually, just to give you some reassurance, this was actually a conversation we had with, I think, both past councils that I was part of, was the replacement cost on fire equipment. And if I remember correctly, Ms. Howarth, if she remembers the conversation, I think this was very specifically a question that we had posed, within the first couple of years of me coming on council, she had informed me about the long-term replacement capital plan for fire capital investments. And again, as Ms. Fox had mentioned before, it's just, it's trying to get it topped up, right? It always seems that it's that boulder you're trying to push uphill. But just to give you some assurance, that was a question we had asked years ago, and there was a plan in place, but it's a very difficult thing to get ahead of because it's very expensive capital equipment. I did just want to they're really not questions. So, administration, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on anything or if I misquote any parts of the report. But again, if there's any citizens watching, they're just high-level questions that are important that I think they need a little bit of airtime because you're talking about a pretty substantial investment of 1.3 million. And so you want to make sure that the questions have been asked or the information has been given openly. So the report gives the following information, and I think it's important for citizens to know. And so Fire Chief Martins, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, that our current town engine, it's 20 years old. It's no longer eligible for insurance. In 2020, it failed all of its pump testing, and therefore it doesn't contribute to any credit grading in the fire classification insurance. And then furthermore, of course, if we didn't replace it, we wouldn't have a frontline engine available, which of course puts our personnel at risk, for injury and in how they deal with fires of any sort. And of course, this is something that we have with previous budgets and this budget budgeted for. Is there anything in that that's wrong or I've misquoted or anything like that? Or is that sort of bang on accurate?
Fire Chief Martins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through council, you are correct on all of that. It is a 20-year-old engine. The problem with the failed pump, that's where we run into the big issue. It's now what we call derated. We no longer use it as a frontline engine. It's no longer for fire suppression. It can be used as a backup engine if needed, but under the fire underwriter survey, it lays out if the pump would be good, we could write a letter of an exemption to maybe get another year or two out of that pump. But the fact that it failed, it no longer holds the ability to do what that truck can do. It is no longer really any use to us. We could use it as a training truck, as well as currently right now we are keeping it until the new one gets here. And it is that backup truck. We are running other rigs out the door before that rig. So that is correct.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that clarification. I think that's just what I'm going to pass on to members of the public if they ask, and they should ask. They want to know where that money's going and why the town needs a debenture for it. But ultimately, this is something I'm looking forward to supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGoon. Before I go to Councillor Haas and Councillor Race, I have a follow-up to Councillor McGoon's question for the fire chief. I just want to bring clarity that sometimes when you read something, it could be interpreted two different ways. I just want to make sure that without this engine, we have no legitimate or no frontline engines. Is that correct? Or is it saying that we're losing one frontline engine and we have other ones to use at the moment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to council. We have other engines that we use, but you have to remember that the other engines have different purposes. Our town engine has a certain size tanker on it or a certain amount of water, which we use for a frontline attack engine. So we have another fire truck next to it in the hall with the same pump size, but not the same amount of water. It's a rescue truck. It's for specific things to do with rescue. Then we have a tanker truck, which is next to it. Again, we roll that out the door, but that only can carry 2 people. So as we move down the road, we have a ladder truck, but we have issues with the ladder truck. So this truck is specifically our town engine that we purchased 20 years ago, and we are replacing. It's a custom built engine so that the tools that we currently have all fit and it meets the needs of the community. As you'll remember through the previous agreement, it was a cost share with Yellowhead County and there was input with the county. That is no longer. That agreement was signed, I think, in 2019. And these trucks are ours now to run forward with until we either replace or remove. So.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Fire Chief Martins. Much appreciated. With that, Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Martins, just a question come to mind. What happens with the old truck once we receive this new truck? But what does occur with that old truck?
Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through your council. So as per our agreement still with Yellowhead County, we do have to give them the first right of refusal. If they should want this truck for anything, we would then go down the road of appraising it, and they would have to give us half the cost of the appraised value. If they do not wish to move forward with using that truck or taking that truck, then we basically put it up for auction and we split the cost. And that was moving forward with any of the trucks that they paid 50% with that are still in our fleet. Any of the new trucks that they've not paid into, that agreement doesn't apply to them.
Okay. If I can have a follow-up question, and this is just a high level come to me, I realize we have this truck now, but isn't there precedent in some cases where donating that truck to, say, I think Edson did it a few years back, if I remember. Maybe I may be wrong, but went down to another country and actually donated the truck because they don't have access to, fire suppressant vehicles like that. Is that even a thought in regards to this moving forward? I mean, I realize there's some value with the auction, but I'm just curious is that a possibility?
Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the council. It absolutely. I think previous to myself, can't remember if it was Peter Enzer donated some gear through Bernie Kreiner with something maybe it was Kinsman or something he was involved with at that time. And Edson's done that. Calgary, Edmonton. And how it works is basically once we get enough equipment through the province, we purchase a cargo and we send it through in a cargo container, and trucks have been done, and the bunker gear and other types of SCBA equipment. However, at this time, we do have someone interested in purchasing the truck. So we kind of would wait to see what pans out from that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for Fire Chief. You and I had talked earlier about these two rating systems, and I'm wondering if, because we won't have this frontline engine, is that affecting those two rating systems that you and I had talked about, where we're scored between 1 and 5, and in one area we're sitting at, I think, 3.5. Could you speak to that?
Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the council. So I have written a letter to fire underwriters, and so we did this, the same with the ladder truck. Because we're in the process of purchasing a truck, they give us a grace period until the new truck arrives. They understand that we can't flick a switch and a new truck show up in the next day. So we have a grace period with this truck. Having it as the pump failed, that added a little bit more complication, but the fact that we still have the county engine, which is engine 2.7, that did pass its pump test. It's still 20 years old, but we can use that one rolling out the door as our first line or second line as well. So we have that exemption from them until the new truck arrives. Through the capital process, there's the fire underwriter study that was approved. So we'll be going back to get that completed, hopefully soon. And from that, that will take all the new information that we have with the new trucks we have. The previous one was done with the old trucks. This one will be done with the new trucks, and then take everything from public works and from planning and development with the different water size and all that kind of stuff we have in our community, hydrant size, our flow testing, and that will give us what we exactly will need in the community and what we might not need in the community. So as you're aware, there is another truck in the process, in the capital process to replace engine 2.7 because again, it's at 20 years. So the fire underwriting study, when that comes back, that might say we're good with what we have, or it might say we don't need maybe that engine that we have currently. It's based on pump size and water. It's based on manpower, training levels, full-time staff versus volunteer staff. So there's some challenges there, and the ratings differ with full-time staff and your response times. We don't guarantee response times because we are 98% volunteer. So that adds some of the challenges. If you guarantee response times, then our planning and development department can build houses closer together. So it's better for our developers. So that's all the stuff that comes into the fire underwriter survey when we look at that. And it gives that different rating that I sent in the email.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Very much.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Nelson.
I'd like to move that council gives second reading of authorization of debenture bylaw 1150 as presented. If I can speak to it, although I appreciate some of this information that we're getting on the fly, this is something we approved at last budget, and the debenture part is really just a step in the way. So if council isn't comfortable or wasn't comfortable with moving forward with this, then to me, today is not necessarily the right time. And if we're not comfortable, then let's direct administration to bring back a report. Again, a lot of on the fly information. I don't think unless it's going to affect anybody's decision making, I think it's better to come back as another report in the future so that we can all have the same information to review and consider and ask questions. So with that, I'm comfortable making this motion and approving this debenture bylaw because it's something we approved nearly a year ago. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council gives second reading of authorization of debenture bylaw 1150 as presented. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, any other questions? Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to move that we give third reading of authorization of debenture bylaw number 1150 as presented. And if I can speak to it? I realize this might be on the fly, but these were questions that some of the community members had, and I think it's due to ask these questions. I'm all in favor and in support of this. Obviously, the Chief Martins has done a good job in regards to presenting, of course, the risk if we weren't to do this. So, but I think some of our citizens really did have some questions and concerns as to why we're borrowing this money. And I think it's just another opportunity for us to inform our citizens on the reasons for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council gives third reading of authorization debenture bylaw 1150 as presented. Council, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our eighth and final item, council representative changes on boards and committees, and that's for myself. With the change to the golf course, Councillor mcgoon not having a member of council on that board, seeing that there's 10 months left in this term, I thought it was best to just give one of the committees that I was on to Councillor mcgoon and not shake up things too much. So if there's somebody who wants to make that motion, I will entertain that. If not, I will cede the chair to the deputy mayor and make it myself. Council, any questions? Councillor Hawes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd make the motion gladly that council appoint Councillor mcgoon, Ryan mcgoon, to the Hinton Police / Town Liaison Committee and remove Mayor Marcel Michaels. And if I can speak to it, I appreciate you guys talking about this, and I think Councillor mcgoon will be a good fit here, and it only makes sense to like you said, not shake two things up too much. So
Thank you, Councillor Hawes, for that. And Councillor McGoon has previous experience with the policing committee, so I think it's a very natural fit. Councillor McGoon.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I appreciate the thought that's gone into the motion behind the scenes. Councillor Hawes, thank you so much for making the motion. And I'm looking forward to taking on that committee again. That was one I very much enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to working with both our Protective Services Director, Chief Martins, and our police chief. For me, that's an area of interest, and I'm really excited to get in there and hear about the good work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGoon. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further questions or debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council appoint Councillor Ryan McGoon to the Hinton Police Town Liaison Committee and remove Mayor Marcel Michaels. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Anything further, council, for this item? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our information items, and we only have one. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I'd like to move that council accept council information packages number 1, number 2, and number 3 for January 5th, 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously, and that'll bring us to our reporting for this evening. And I will start with Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Nothing to report other than glad to be back and Happy New Year to everybody. Enjoyed a nice quiet Christmas with my family, and Zoom is great, you know, and it was a lot of fun. And New Year.
I think Councillor Hawes froze, but I think he was ending.
Well, so, but I'm looking forward to, sorry, am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just looking forward to getting back to the library board, see what they've been doing over the Christmas season and with the closure. And other than that, nothing else to report.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor McGoon.
Well, I certainly enjoyed not going to Hawaii for the Christmas break, although I'm sure there's others that can't say the same. No, I really don't have anything too much to report. I'm very excited to start taking on some duties with the policing committee. I would like to pass on to council, though, in sort of trying to fill the gap between the golf board and taking on this new position. I did do some reach out to our Chamber of Commerce and our local business community, and I did want to share some concerns, and I think others on council have heard the same, that there is definitely a concern around having council get back to temporary residential accommodation issues as a business item, and dealing with things like Airbnbs and those related websites and issues, and how it impacts people in our community. And in fact, I was talking to a resident within town who has one of these Airbnbs near to them, and how it had been impacting them particularly. And it was an interesting story. I'll share the details later. But that's just an area that I'm hoping that we'll see in the near future. But other than that, in terms of business, just reaching out with the chamber and looking at some potential low-hanging fruit, some areas that Ms. Charlton was suggesting we could move forward together trying to advocate for. And so she had mentioned that I should talk to you, Mr. Mayor, about that. And you know, we can talk with the rest of council about how maybe to work with the chamber in order to promote some of their ideas moving forward for what might be best for ensuring we have a healthy business community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGoon. And I guess a follow-up for the community or whomever is watching this, there will be a delegation, it seems more than likely, depending on what the agenda committee decides for January 19th, from some hoteliers to speak to that. And there was a request from Councillor Nelson to add this as a discussion item later this month. So we'll look at the timing as the agenda committee and see how we can time a discussion and a delegation regarding this matter. So thanks for bringing that up. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not too much to report. Had a nice Christmas. Still can't bake bread. I am getting a lot of calls. Well, not a lot. I am getting calls from people regarding the blue bins. It's almost like they have not been part of the conversation. They're not aware that their blue bin will be disappearing. So I'm hoping that we as a town can come up with another strategy in getting the information out there regarding the blue bins, the black bins, the ability to keep your current bin for, backyard work, not garbage work. So other than that, it's been pretty quiet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Waugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing new to report since our last meeting. I have a SEAC meeting coming up on Thursday, and I believe that the results of their fall survey will be coming to us in the coming weeks. And yeah, other than that, just a lazy, hazy kind of Christmas holiday.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Just to speak quickly to the short-term rental accommodation discussion, Mayor Michaels, myself, some members of administration, Chamber of Commerce, and some other key personnel did have a meeting before Christmas to discuss with Chamber's concerns on behalf of the hoteliers and others in the community about some concerns about how short-term rental accommodations are affecting the community. And like Mayor Michaels said, that there would be likely a delegation coming forward to speak to council as a whole about it. So I look forward to hearing that and potentially being able to move forward with something to address that in our community. Other than that, no formal functions since our last council reporting. I do have Hinton Regional Economic Development Coalition meeting later this week, and a Beaver Boardwalk Committee meeting on Monday of next week. So I'm looking forward to being able to report something at next council meeting. Other than that, I just hope everyone had a good Christmas and wishing everyone a happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did have since our last meeting a youth council meeting. We're treading forward even with the challenges. Some of the initiatives that were really looked at are very much limited by the new restrictions with COVID-19. So trying to refocus some of the efforts, and it's honestly too bad. It's a really motivated group that got a great start. But a lot of the things around inclusivity and connectiveness are very difficult. So, and even just the medium of electronic meetings is certainly more challenging for that group than some others. So hopefully we're still able to do some good work. I continue to almost on a weekly basis meet with the wetland working group. And I think council has sent some of the work that we've kind of gotten to, and look forward to some feedback from other municipalities over the next little bit. We had a procedural bylaw review update committee meeting right before Christmas, because that's what everybody wants to do right before Christmas. Definitely some changes coming forward, some that are very much needed, and some that I think are opportunities, especially considering the change in meeting schedule. So I look forward to another meeting, I think next week, with Mayor Michaels and Ms. Rendell to keep moving that forward so we can bring it back to council within the deliverables that they requested. And I've also, over the last few weeks, been able to have quite a few Zoom sessions with individuals and groups of citizens, one specifically around the boardwalk, but just other ones as well. And just a new medium for citizen engagement when you can't be at the mall and you can't go to A&W, you can't go to any of these in-person meetings. So I'd encourage any citizen to reach out to your council. And, if you're looking to talk and you want it to be a little bit more face-to-face, I think all of us would be happy to make that happen. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. For myself, I just had that procedural bylaw meeting on the 21st of December also. I don't know, I think one more meeting, and with the help of Ms. Rendell, I think we're very close to meeting those deliverables, as Councillor Nelson alluded to. So I'm very excited, and really more excited to get then the dialogue, the conversation in public to see how we want to set this up, not permanently, but really make it represent governance in 2020, 2021, like more realistic to how we proceed every day. So great progress, and really excited on that.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I think Councillor mcgoon had a question at some point.
Thank you, Councillor mcgoon.
Thank you. And it's actually about both of those things. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I guess my question for any of the committee members is, when that's brought back to council, the document that we work from, is it planned on presenting it in a red line edit style so that we can see what the originals were versus the recommended changes and additions?
Great question. I guess I'd hand that over to Ms. Rendell, if that's okay with CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Yeah, we could present it that way if that is what council would like. That's what we've been working with too, is a red line version of it. And yeah, I think we can do that. That's possible.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, speaking for myself, with documents of that level of importance and how comprehensive they are, I always find that helpful. That's a little mundane, but in terms of doing the work, it's something that I would find helpful.
Yeah, very much appreciated, Councillor mcgoon. And seeing as to what Councillor Nelson said earlier, I think there are a lot of changes. So I think the red line format or something of that approach is probably the best course of action for major changes. So thanks for that feedback and that idea. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's on a different topic. I just wanted to hopefully I don't know why my thing keeps saying internet connection is unstable, but it's in regards to the garbage bins that Councillor Race brought up earlier. In some communication to the public, I've had some questions, and I think there's been some misunderstanding in the questions that I had in regards to keeping your black bins. And the question that I've had is emptying them. And I guess this is my question to administration and Mr. Wolowski. They are not going to be in service, correct? Like the garbage truck, they're not going to be able to put these black bins out at their curb once it's full, if they choose to keep them and have them emptied. Is that correct, or am I mistaken?
Administration, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. They will be decommissioned as soon as the transfer has taken place. So the intention there is for community members to be able to use them for composting or for whatever purposes they deem. But that's the intention there. There won't be an additional truck that's capable of emptying those bins after the full transition of the community is taking place.
Right, and that's what I informed, but I wanted to make sure. But I think making sure that if we are going to do that, that people are aware of that, because there was assumption it was bigger, so they were going to keep it out and gather, whatever, if it's a hobby or whatever, and then when it gets full, they didn't realize they had to. It's not going to be emptied by anybody but them. So I just want to be clear on that if people choose that. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hawes. And that, I think, wraps it up. That moves. We'll move on to urgent matters. I know this is a little bit different now that we've changed that, but are there any urgent matters this evening? Councillor Nelson.
It's not necessarily an urgent matter, but I just wanted confirmation of when the year-end financial statements would be coming to council. It's been changed 3 or 4 times, and I just want to make sure publicly people know when to be watching for it.
CEO Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Administration is looking to bring the year-end financials at the February 2nd meeting to council.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. CEO Olson. Any other urgent matters? Seeing none, I'll go to our CAO.
Thank you. Not too much to report tonight. Just returning to the office after some holiday time with my family. It's been a long year and appreciated some time to rest. Otherwise, getting back into the swing of things, our EOC remains activated at a level 1. We are continuing to meet weekly for information sharing. There's nothing new to share at this time. We're looking forward to the province sharing some updates on their current restrictions in the next week. Just to clarify, there's no prior notice given to municipalities outside of what's shared publicly when it's shared by the province. So we find out kind of along with everybody else when those announcements are made. I just wanted to confirm that. So looking forward to finding out what the plan is moving forward there. As well, administration is preparing the reports in support of the budget requests, the reports that were requested by council during the budget process, including those related to any capital projects as well as the information items that council's requested. So I should have a better idea of the timelines associated with those reports to share at the January 19th meeting when we go over the action tracker. Though some may be on the heels of that or even potentially prior. So I just want council to know that we are working on those and we will be slotting them in to bring forward to answer any of your questions and to provide opportunity for decisions on some of those items that were requested through the budget process. Otherwise, that's all for me, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, CAO Olson. That'll bring us to our administrative inquiries for today. Anything?
None.
Seeing none, notices of motion. Seeing none, that'll bring us to, we have one item in camera. I will entertain a motion if that's the will of council. Councillor Hawes.
The motion to go in camera.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. All those in favor? And we'll do a 3-minute intermission to let people get out of the room.
Go ahead. It's live.
Hello, I'd like to reconvene this meeting at 5:09. Council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hawes.
Take the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Thank